just it just gets so brain rot the later we get in the night.
You know who Wizard101 is releasing new spells that you can get in Aquila, and it's pretty interesting. A lot of player feedback, a lot of bugs, and a lot of things that we need to talk about regarding these spells because so many things have arisen because of these spells. So let's talk about all the information and let's get down to the deep end regarding this topic. Now you just see the little almond just going up the staircase like in his intro. I don't know if I'm ever going to bring that back, but y'all can tell me if you want that back. But anyways, these new spells have caused a lot of issues in the player base and a lot of feedback regarding these spells. Now what the issue with these spells is that they're not that great to farm. It's very annoying to farm these spells. Now I know quote-unquote grindy players are very upset on this because it takes forever to farm these spell elements. Comparing it to any other spells that do exist in the game regarding spell elements, these are the worst to farm. Now you might be wondering, how is that even possible, Almond? Well, the issue is there's no cantrip chest in Aquila. Why is that a thing? I don't know. They should just add cantrip chest to Aquila, go with the homie of 3 people, go run around Aquila and, you know, get some spells regarding these new Aquila themed spells, right? Another thing is, whenever you go farm these spell elements via any of the bosses in Aquila, whether it be like Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, even the side bosses, etc., even the new boss, Sisyphus, they don't drop it like people want them to drop it. For example, I did challenge mode the other day. I will be posting a video regarding it, and I only got like 3 spell elements. Like, what? You do a whole dungeon on challenge mode and you're only getting 3 spell elements? That is not generous, and I'm just gonna keep it 100% with you guys. Now the devs aren't treating these like lore spells, and now when I mean lore spells, I mean those spells that are hidden behind key bosses, right? Like you got Headless Horseman behind Darkmoor, you got all these other spells like Catalan, etc. from like Avalon key bosses, but these spells are not hidden behind a key boss. In a way, they feel like world spell elements because, you know, you can go to like Darkmoor, or not Darkmoor, you can go to like Avalon, go farm some spells, you know, grind up your rank 9 spells, etc., right? You can't do that with these spells, but they feel like world spells because you're getting them from Aquila. They're not hidden behind a key boss. But it feels like at the end of the day, the devs are treating them like lore spells, even though they're saying that they're not lore spells because, hey, they don't even have a skull pit. Now, I'm just being honest, the drop rates are just terrible. They need to add cantrip chests. We all can agree to this. And now we do have that new boss that we talked about, Sisyphus, that a lot of people thought this was a key boss, but it's not. You can just go into this new quest, fight him, and he drops spell elements. He has a challenge mode as well. Don't even know why, but he has a challenge mode. He also has a scaler in his dungeon where you can just level scale yourself down and farm him as well on standard mode. Now look, with all this information we can all gather, let's be honest, stop moving the goalposts and just buff the spell element drops from all the stuff from here, especially on challenge mode. Like, you would think on challenge mode you'd be getting a lot of spell elements. That's how it's been for every other world, and you know, we all know that, right? Especially Wallaroo, especially Salinopolis, we can tell that the spell element drops are boosted. There are no boosted rates at all on challenge mode. Now back to the topic of them saying that these aren't lore spells. Now let me tell you something. There is going to be a new pack that's going to be coming out in the future. They have literally stated this in the Discord server and one on some of their streams. There is going to be a new pack that comes out. Now guess what's in that pack? Yeah, we get new gear, etc., right? Here's the kicker. These spells are dropped in that pack. Now, when you hear something like that, you'll be like, wait, these aren't lore spells. Why are they dropping from the pack? But they're not lore spells at the same time. They're not treating them like it. It just doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't make sense. So, at the end of the day, TLDR, before I move on to like what the spells do in the rest of this video, KI buff the drop rates on challenge mode and standard, right? There should be at least awarding you a decent amount. Who cares, right? Who cares? And I know they're on their side of things. It's like, hey, well, most players are only going to go for tier 1, and maybe the advanced combat people are only going to go for tier 2, and then the hardcore 1% are going to go for the tier 5. I get that, but that doesn't mean you have to lower the spell elements from bosses when we can literally go to like Wallaroo or Salinopolis and get spell elements like nothing. It's night and day difference, guys. It's night and day difference. And realistically, another thing you guys can just do is add cantrip chests to Aquila. Who is it hurting? right? Just add them. You guys have them in every other world. Add them to Aquila, and the player base will be fine. I keep seeing this topic brought up in like my streams and like other things, and I'm just like, it's realistically they should just do that. And it might be a small area. Hey, there's so many realms in the game. You can just switch realms. You know, just add 1 or 2 cantrip chests. Put them in the weirdest obscure spots. The same person that worked on the Chrysalis cantrip chests can put them in Aquila and put them in the most obscure spots. That fixes all of our problems, right? And this update with all these spells isn't going to be coming out with the raid update. This whole update regarding the Aquila key boss, or not the key boss, but like the side boss and like the challenge mode stuff, that isn't going to be released till later on. It's in this test realm, but it's not going to be released till later on. So maybe there might be some changes here and there. Another thing is, with the spells, they should just make it so we get the base spell by default in Wizard101. For example, if we finish all the dungeons in Aquila, they should make the Sisyphus quest right afterwards, where you can fight him and your reward is the spell. That's what it should be, and that should be the base spell. And then if you want to, you know, farm the spell elements after that, then hey, you can go back and, you know, go farm Sisyphus, go farm all the Mount Olympus bosses, side bosses, as well as Sisyphus himself, like I said, and just add some cantrip chests, and people are happy. That's just my take on that. But realistically, we should get the base spell for free. I think we can all agree to this. If these are not lore spells, you know, if we're going based upon that argument, give us the base spell for free, just so it saves some time. That's just my take on it. But enough about the drops, enough about what the spells, like, you know, this whole topic is. Let's go over the spells, right? Because in my video, I did go over the animations, and I've heard some people come to my, you know, chat on Twitch. Yo, definitely go over there, hit the follow. I try to stream almost every day, even though I'm busy with college. I'm still doing my best. But anyways, the spells have changed drastically from what I showcased in that one video. And a lot of people are asking, why did I showcase it on the Storm? And to be honest, hands up, that is my fault. I should have just shown them on the respective school, because some people don't understand symbols, and that is my fault, right? I will put my hands up. I should have done it on the correct schools instead of doing all the spells showcased on my Storm. But they all have different stuff, and we'll go over the icons as well. So because some people don't understand icons, it's okay. And if people want me to, I can do like an icon video that goes over every single icon in Wiz when it comes to spells. So let me know in the comments down below if y'all want that. Well, before I go into the spells, I do want to note that a lot of these spells are subject to change. A lot of the hanging effects that they do are going to be subject to change. I've seen people go back and forth about this in Discord as well, in the official Wizard101 server. And like I said, very possible, very likely, a lot of these spells are still going to be changed. So bear with me. I'm going to try my best to update you guys on what the spells look like more and more. But it's test round. They're going to be changing it left, right, and center. At that point, I might as well just wait for the official release. But let's go over what it is currently in test round. Now, Jupiter's Might, currently, the top path, what it does damage. Ignore the money sign. That's a writing error on their side of things. But it does damage, and then it does a chromatic negative aura on the enemy. Now, if you were to use this on a Storm, it would, you know, obviously do damage. And then after that, it would put a negative aura on the enemy where they take incoming 35% damage to Storm, right? But you can train these spells on other schools. So if I wanted to use Jupiter Might on, let's just say, a Death, it would still require me to have Storm stats, because it is a Storm spell, right? Because it scales off of Storm stats. But the chromatic aura that I placed on the enemy will now be Death instead of Storm, because that's what that chromatic symbol means. So that's why I should have showcased all these spells on a respective school, because not everyone's going to be knowing that. And I realized that a little bit too late. So I'm sorry about that. But like I said, that's the whole point of this top path, and there is some utility behind it both ways. If you want to use it on a Storm, or if you want to use it on another school, the chromatic aura will be different depending on what your school is. So keep that in mind. Now we can move on to the bottom path as well. It does a similar effect. So it does 910 damage at max tier, and it clears up to 3 dots, and it puts a chromatic aura on the enemy for 2 rounds. Now you might be wondering, well, that's just like, why is that 2 rounds? Well, if you're not paying attention to exactly what the card does, is it adds 2 rounds per clear. So if you were to clear 3 dots on yourself, that negative aura is going to actually last 6 rounds instead of 2 rounds. So if you clear 1, it's 2. If you clear 2 dots, it's 4. If you clear 3, it's going to be 6. I know you wouldn't realize that if you just looked at the card. You'll probably be like, ah, it's still 2 rounds. But no, it's actually up to 6. So depending on how many dots you clear on yourself. And since I told you guys earlier about the whole chromatic icon on it, it will be whatever the school is of the caster. So if I'm using this on a storm, hey, that enemy now has a negative aura that lets me do plus 35 damage up to 6 rounds for storm. Now if I use this spell on a death, right, we're going to use death as an example, it would still do storm damage and everything like that, but that negative aura now is going to be a death aura. So they take plus 35 incoming death damage for 6 rounds. Hopefully that explains it a little bit more, and we can move on to the next spell. Now let's talk about Poseidon, Neptune's Fury, whatever you want to call it, right? Now at top path it is 9 pips, and it is 780 damage, and it puts 2 plus 35 ice traps on the enemy. Not too much explaining to do on this, it's very straightforward, and I don't need to explain more than that. Now, if we go to the bottom path, what it does is Neptune's Fury does 640 ice damage, and it clears a blade on the enemy for a plus 40% ice trap. Now, the amount of clears you do is the amount of traps you receive on the enemy. So if you clear 8 blades on the enemy, you put 8 40% traps on the enemy. Now all these traps are the same trap, so don't expect all these 40% to stack with each other and you can just nuke the enemy. No, doesn't work like that. So in just return, you're getting basically the same trap over and over that does 40%. So very straightforward. There's nothing else to really explain about this card, but other than that, keep in mind that it does clear up to 8 blades. And remember, all these spells are subject to change, so whatever they are when they come to live realm, I will post an updated video explaining what the spells do. But yeah, this is very straightforward. There's no chromatic business. They will both of these paths both give ice traps. There's nothing chromatic related. So there's that. Now let's talk about Ares, or Fire of Mars. What it does is it's a 1.4k dot that's split into 3 dots, and it's chromatic, and it lasts 6 rounds. Now, some people might not understand how good of a value of a spell this is, but I'll be honest, it has some value. Not many people are realizing it, but trust me, there is some value behind this because of the fact it is chromatic. Yes, it will scale off of my fire damage, but still, it is a chromatic dot. So I am looking forward to the spell regardless, right? So if I am using this spell on a storm, it's going to be using my fire stats because, hey, this is still a fire spell. It's scaling off my fire stats because it has the fire icon in the top right. That's how you remember. So it scales off of my fire stats, but it will put a storm dot if I'm on a storm. So yeah, and it lasts 6 rounds and it's split up into 3 things. Now this spell is still really good for advanced combat and challenge mode stuff because it's 3 dots. You can instantly set up so much stuff with it. But that's just my take on it, right? Still really good spell. And like I said, if you use this on a fire, it'll be fire dots. If you use it on a ice, it'll be ice dots. But always remember, since it still is a fire spell, it's scaling off of your fire stats. So just remember that. Now let's move on to the Path B. Path B, max tier, 825 damage, and up to 4 times it will gambit to 4 traps. So remember that. If there's 4 traps on the enemy, you can gambit each an individual one, and that will give you a dot in return. That's chromatic and lasts 5 rounds. So still remember, if I am on an ice, if I'm on a death, am I on a storm, and I use this spell, still it's going to scale off of my fire stats, but that dot is going to be school specific to what school you are. That's what that symbol means. And each of these dots will last up to 5 rounds. So still, overall, in my opinion, Fire Mars is still a really good spell. Top path and bottom path. PvP standards, I have no clue. Don't ask me. I'm a PvE guy. Y'all know this. Y'all watch the channel for PvE guides or anything PvE content regarding casual and challenge mode or advanced content. You're not going to see me run into the arena unless some special occasion happens. But yeah, that's Fire Mars. Hopefully that explains it. And if you have any more questions, let me know in the comments down below. But let's move on to the next spell. Now let's talk about Life. Now Life obviously had some spell changes from the last time I recorded this video, but we do have some changes. Now what they're doing with Top Path is very interesting, and a lot of people need to understand this Top Path is really good for advanced content. What it does is it's 8 pips, does life damage, and it detonates 3 dots on the enemy for 130% of its value. That is good. That is really good. And I will definitely be looking forward to this spell 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. So those are the changes to the top path. And now we can quickly go over the bottom path as well. does 685 at max tier, and it gambits up to 3 dots. In return, you get a 10-20 hot for 6 rounds. So very good spell, if I do say so myself. Just remember with Phoebus Will is that you do get a hot per gambit. So if you gambit up to 3 hots, or I mean 3 dots, you get 3 hots in return. So there is value behind this, and it can instantly set up some stuff, but it does use 8 pips, so you do have to be wary of the pip value on this. Now let's go over the death spell. We got Pluto's Peril, Hades, whatever you want to call it. I wish that these were called Wrath of Hades and like all the other stuff, but that's a topic for another day. But top path, what it does 560 death damage. As well, it puts a negative aura where it's a minus 25% outgoing. So this is outgoing, not incoming. You do need to remember that. So, and it's universal as well, so just any damage that they do outgoing is a minus 25%. Basically, it's a hit into a starfall. If you know what starfall is, put an image on screen if I got time in the editing process. If not, editor, get to it. But yeah, it's just basically a hit into a starfall. That's a 25%. So there's that. And then the bottom path, what it does, it gambits a negative aura, right? You gambit a negative aura, and it gives you 3 minus 65% shields that are universal. So it's not set, it's not chromatic based on the enemy. It's just 3 set shields. No, not set shields. Well, 3 shields that are minus 65%. So basically like tower shields. That's how I put it. But yeah, you do still do 620 damage, but that gambit will give you that shield in a high regard. So that's Pluto Peril. Let me know if you have any questions. Very straightforward of a spell as well. Now we move on to the mid spell, which is Saturn's Reaping. Now this spell has been changed like a couple times in test round, but I'm going based upon what it currently is. The spell is more subject to change, or it's more likely to get subject to change in the future, so be wary of it. But what it does currently in test round, which is a really good spell in my opinion for like advanced combat, challenge mode and stuff like that, very good spell. I've been in talks with so many people and we really like this spell. I don't know if it'll get changed, but hey, if it stays as it is right now, I'll take it. If it doesn't, I mean, I'm hoping that it still keeps like the, you know, the chromatic trap business. But let's go over it, right? So top path at max tier, it does 560 damage, and it's a 70% chromatic trap on the enemy. So whatever your school is. So if you use this on a myth, it's going to be a myth trap. If you use it on a storm, it's going to be a storm trap, etc., etc. Hopefully that makes a lot more sense. Yes, it will still scale off of your myth stats because, hey, this is still a myth spell, right? So if you care about the damage part of the spell, you are going to need some myth stats, right? But the trap is still going to be remaining 70. So if you just want to use this for the trap value, that is completely fine, which is what I'm going to be doing 1,000,000%. You can use this to break a shield on the enemy and then replace it with the 70 trap if you're allowed to do traps in that fight, of course. And then you can have someone else set up something and you can just kind of like nuke a lot of things in the game. It's a fuel for advanced it's a feint for advanced combat. Yeah. I don't know if they'll remove this. Like I said, it's very subject to change, but it's a very good spell for advanced content PvE. That's just my take on it. I don't know what PvP players are thinking about this spell, but still, it is 7 pips. It is still 7 pips. If you think about it, a pip equals 10% of that trap, but that's based upon whatever they value it as. But still, very good spell, and I do like that. Now with the bottom path, obviously it's currently bugged right now because you can see max tier is only 570, but if you look at tier 4, it's doing 790. Yeah, that's a scam. So I'm pretty sure they'll fix that in a future test round patch or even whenever it comes to live round. Definitely doesn't look intended, right? But it does 570 damage at max tier, right? Max tier, because, you know, it's the incorrect damage value. But it does gambit shields for 55 chromatic traps on the enemy. Both paths of this spell, they're godlike, and I really like this spell. This is one of my favorites out of the Aquila spells because of the trap percentages that they're doing. So highly recommend. These are one of the spells you should definitely tier up. That's just my take on it. But yeah, it's very good. You are getting a trap per shield you gambit. So if you do have 4 shields, you gambit all of them, it is a 55 chromatic trap on the enemy. So whatever your school is, if you are using this on a myth, it will be 55 myth traps. If it's on an ice, you'll be getting 55 ice traps. Keep that in mind. You still need myth stats if you want to, you know, increase the damage of this, right? If you want to do a lot of damage with this spell, you are going to need myth stats, but the percentage of the traps are still going to be remaining as the correct values shown on the card. So that's something that to look forward to. Now let's go over the balance spell, which is the last spell I believe to talk about. But currently in game, what it does for top path, it does 660 balance damage and just gives you 2 universal blades, basically balance blades, that are 25%. Very straightforward of spell, not too much explained to do. And then bottom path, what it does is 700 damage, balance damage specifically, and it echoes blades for 35% universal blades. So however many blades, up to 7 the enemy has, you will get 35 blades in return. So if the enemy has 7 blades, you get 735 blades. Very straightforward of a card, there's not too much explaining to do. So those are the spells, and that's really all I want to talk about because, hey, people wanted me to do an in-depth video explaining what the cards do and give my take around the whole spellments, because farming those spellments and, you know, judging by how they are currently in test realm, like I said, it is test realm, you know, I'm still going to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, things will change. Maybe they'll add cantrip chest to Aquila, maybe they'll buff the drop rates of spellments via all the bosses, because currently it is absurd. It is very much absurd. And if they're saying that these are not lore spells, but then proceed to throw them in a pack, I don't know what logic we're going based on of. But to be honest, they've done that with, I believe, the Walrus spells or the Salanapa spells. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong, hands up, because I don't even remember. Right? I don't even remember. I'm playing devil advocate here, right? I don't remember. But if that's the case, then I can understand it. But still, we can't just say that these aren't lore spellments and then proceed to put them in a pack. You know, I don't know. I get the logic though. I get the logic between both ways. But at the end of the day, yeah, just buff the drop rates of the spellments and everyone's just happy. Buff the drops of the spellments and then add cantrip chest. Boom, problem solved. Everyone's happy. So there's that. That's my take on the spells. That's my take on the spellment drops and everything like that. So that's it for me. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. More test run videos. I recorded so much stuff. I just need to like make videos of it. Guide soon regarding the raid. So many things. So many things. Be on the lookout. Make sure you subscribe. Get me to 8K. I appreciate it. But yeah, see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.